We are live.
I'm going to call the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource, oh, I forget, sorry, different mics.
There you go.
Okay, now we're recording. I'm going to call the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission special meeting on Wednesday, July 30th to order at 6:30 p.m. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If the recording secretary would please call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner DeVrint,
Here.
Commissioner Weeks,
Present.
Commissioner Urena. Present. Thank you. Vice Chair Maharo.
Present.
Thank you. Chair Lubicic.
Present.
Thank you so much.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and on our online platforms. To prevent any overlapping comments, each commissioner will be called upon to speak. The first item on our agenda is the public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. If you wish to address the commission, please fill out a speaker card that is available on the back table. Once completed, kindly submit the card to the recording secretary. Speakers will be called to the podium one by one. Each speaker will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. And have we received any public comment requests?
We have not received any public comment requests.
All right, then we'll move to the second agenda item, which is approval of minutes. These are the minutes from the January 29th, 2025 HPCRC meetings. Does anyone have any comments? We'll start with Commissioner DeVrint.
No comments.
Commissioner Weeks.
No comments.
Commissioner Urena.
No comment.
And Vice Chair Moharo.
No comment.
And they look fine to me as well. So I will take a motion to accept the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. And then if we could do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner DeVrint. Aye.
Commissioner Weeks. Aye. Thank you. Commissioner Urena. Aye. Thank you. Vice Chair Maharo.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. And Chair Lubicic.
Aye.
All right. 5 A's, motion passes to approve the minutes.
Thank you. That takes us to item 3, the citywide draft historic resources survey report, phase 2. And I believe we're going to have a presentation from Katie Horak. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
You did. You did. Thank you. So good evening, Chair Lubicic and commissioners. It's nice to be here. My name is Katie Horak, and I am a principal at Architectural Resources Group. And it's a great pleasure to be here tonight to provide a recap of our Phase 2 Historic Resources Survey. And this is our final meeting, I believe, with you before this goes to council. So some of this will be somewhat familiar to you. You've heard some of this content before. And we have some updates for you just as we provide some information about the final report. So just to provide a quick refresher on how our survey was phased, there were 2 phases. Phase 1 included a reconnaissance survey of the entire city and an intensive survey of individually eligible properties and non-parcel resources. Those findings were previously adopted. Phase 2 included an intensive survey of historic districts, which includes a complete evaluation of each district and identification of contributors and non-contributors inside the district boundaries. So phase 2 is what I'll be presenting to you this evening. I'll spend just a few minutes recapping how we approached our Phase 2 survey. Our first step was to conduct additional background research on the districts that we had previously identified in Phase 1. We had done some preliminary research during our Phase 1 about potential districts, and the focus of that survey really was individual properties, so we didn't go too deep on districts at that time. So for phase 2, we did dig a lot deeper into the research as it relates to these potential historic districts. Our team conducted focused research into each potential district to learn more about its origins and developmental history. We consulted a variety of research materials, including historic tract and zoning maps, historic aerial images, which helped us understand development patterns over time, and building permit records, which provided more granular information about particular properties. We also consulted newspaper archives, which were valuable sources of information regarding the development of these districts. After finishing our research, our team went back out into the field to conduct the intensive level survey of each potential district. We collected field data on tablets using mobile documentation app called Fulcrum. We walked every single street in every district and collected data about each individual property, including its architectural style, year of construction, architectural features, and any visible alterations. We also took note of things like street lights and street trees, circulation patterns, and other site and landscape features that were found throughout each district and helped to give it its character. Survey data was collected only from the public right-of-way, which is consistent with professional practices. We never entered anybody's private property. If we couldn't see something from the street, we just noted that we couldn't evaluate it at that time. We never left the sidewalk. So this is what we see on our end when we conduct our surveys. This is the Fulcrum interface. We start by looking at a georeference map of each district, which is what you see at left. Each dot on the map represents an individual property. We click on a dot, and then that brings up data fields that we're able to populate in the field. The data fields have been customized so that they directly correspond to the fields that are used to populate the DPR forms, which were included in our deliverables. And this helps streamline the process and ensures that data is collected in a consistent manner, because everything we're collecting in the field goes directly into our forms. As part of the data collection process, each property was classified either as a district contributor or non-contributor. Contributors are properties that were built within the district's period of significance or period of historical development, and they retain historic integrity. A property can have some minor alterations and still be considered a contributor to the district so long as the alterations are not so major that they really impact the original design of the building. Non-contributors either post-date the period of significance or do not retain historic integrity due to alterations. Common examples of extensive alterations include large alterations, the replacement of original wall cladding with an incompatible material such as brick or wood to stucco, or the resizing of original window openings. So a building could have its windows replaced within the original openings and still be a contributor, but once the fenestration patterns start to be interrupted, that really detracts from the historic character of the property, would make it a non-contributor. And like I said, if a property was not visible from the public right-of-way, we did not evaluate it. We gave it a status code 7N, which just means not evaluated. Once we had assessed all of the contributors and non-contributors, we could determine whether or not there was enough contribution to constitute an eligible historic district. And according to your ordinance, that is 51% or more. So I thought it might be helpful to show some examples of how we distinguish between contributors and non-contributors. This is the Mount Vernon Park Historic District, and properties on the top row were classified as contributors. They retain most, if not all, of their historic form, massing, and materials. Properties on the bottom row were classified as non-contributors. The property at bottom left, as you can see, has been altered to the extent that it no longer reads as a 1940s residence. The property in the middle has had an upper story addition that overwhelms the original one-story house. And the property at bottom right features non-historic stucco cladding and replacement windows in new openings that have diminished its historic character. And here are just a few more representative images. These are from the Rosemont Park Historic District. Again, the properties in the top row are examples of contributing properties, and then the properties on the bottom row are representative examples of non-contributing properties. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time getting more in-depth into our findings of these historic districts that we identified. So the survey identified 7 potential historic districts in the city. Collectively, these districts contain a total of 690 properties. All 7 districts were preliminarily identified in the Phase 1 survey. We didn't identify any new districts as part of our work in the Phase 2 survey. All are residential in use and consist of visually cohesive single-family neighborhoods that were developed prior to World War II. Geographically, they are all located in the northern portion of San Gabriel, north of Las Tunas Drive, which is consistent with the city's historic subdivision and development patterns. So I will spend just a little time summarizing each historic district that we identified. On each map, you'll see the potential historic district that we identified, and green parcels, as you can sort of see these colors on the screen, the green parcels represent contributing properties. Yellow parcels represent properties that were identified as individually eligible in Phase 1 and also as contributing properties to the historic district. And then the gray parcels, dark gray, are the non-contributing properties. So on the left on the screen is the California Street Historic District, which is a small district comprising 19 properties, of which 16, or 84%, are contributors. It is located on California Street between Roses Road on the north and Hermosa Drive to the south. All of the properties in this district are single-family residences. On the right of the screen is the Country Club Crest Historic District, which comprises 144 properties, of which 100, or 69%, are contributors. This district is primarily composed of period revival single-family residences with a few low-scale multifamily dwellings, like duplexes that are pretty consistent in size and massing to the single-family residences. And then on the screen on the left is the Country Club Drive Historic District, which is another very small district of about 24 properties, of which 21, or 88%, are contributors. So as you can see with the yellow shading on this one, quite a few of these properties were also identified as eligible for individual designation during Phase 1. The district on the west side is on the west side of Country Club Drive between Roses Road on the north and Las Tunas Drive to the south. All properties are single-family residences constructed in period revival and other early to mid-20th century styles. On the right-hand side of the screen is the Mount Vernon Park Historic District, which comprises 70 properties total, of which 49, or 70%, are contributing. All contributing properties in this district were constructed in a period of 2 years, 1940 to 1941, and a single subdivision, and represent the minimal traditional style. And then on this screen, on the left, we have the Oak Knoll Historic District, which comprises 98 properties, of which 76, or 78%, are contributors. All properties in this district are single-family residences in period revival and minimal traditional styles. And then on the right, we have the Old Mill Vista Historic District, which contains 68 properties, of which 55, or 81%, are contributors. Again, all properties in this district are single-family residences in period revival and minimal traditional styles. And then finally, the last historic district is the Rosemont Park Historic District. This is the largest of all the districts that we identified, and it contains 267 properties, of which 218, or 82%, are contributing. Nearly all contributing buildings are single-family residences, although the district also includes a small cluster of low-scale commercial buildings on San Marino Avenue, which developed contemporaneously with the adjacent residential blocks. So in addition to the 7 potential historic districts, the survey identified 3 potential conservation overlay zones. In the Phase 1 survey, these were called planning districts, but in our conversations with Jen and Sam, we realized that the city's ordinance refers to these areas as conservation overlay zones, and we wanted to be sure that the terms that we used in our work were consistent with your ordinance. So integrity is what distinguishes conservation overlay zones from historic districts. These zones are cohesive areas with a sense of place and consistent development patterns. However, they don't meet that 51% contribution threshold. They have integrity sort of below that threshold, which means that they do not qualify as potential historic districts. So all 3 of the potential conservation overlay zones are located near the geographic center of the city. They include the San Gabriel Village Conservation Overlay Zone, which you see on the left, and the Central San Gabriel Conservation Overlay Zone at right, and then finally, the Mission District Conservation Overlay Zone. So finally, I'll just talk a little bit about a few differences between the preliminary assessment of districts in Phase 1 and then the more detailed evaluations that we provided during the Phase 2 survey. You may have noticed that some of the districts have slightly different names than you saw in the earlier work. Typically, this is because information that we found during our background research provided information about historic names. So for instance, what had been called the Mission Nostra Domingo District was renamed the Old Mill Vista Historic District to reflect the original subdivision name. In some cases, district boundaries were adjusted to account for additional research or fieldwork. So for instance, when we researched the Dorona Avenue Historic District, we added several adjacent blocks so that the district boundary would correspond with the original subdivision boundary. And finally, the Mission District, which had been identified as a potential historic district in the Phase 1 survey, was reclassified as a conservation overlay zone during Phase 2. This decision was informed by our fieldwork. When we walked to the area and started getting into the weeds of documentation, documenting every building, we discovered that many of the buildings were much more altered than we had initially realized in our reconnaissance work. And there were a number of parking lots and other intrusions that compromised its overall integrity, and therefore did not meet that 51% threshold to be a historic district. Once the fieldwork was completed, we reviewed and analyzed the data and compiled everything into a draft survey report, which we brought back to you last January. We have since finalized that report based on feedback, and that is what is before you today. So the report includes a detailed discussion of our methodology, detailed information about each potential historic district and conservation overlay zone. It also includes 2 appendices. Appendix A includes a property list for each historic district organized by street and address, which lists each property's contributor status and associated status code. And Appendix D includes DPR forms for each district, including a detailed description and an evaluation of eligibility criteria. So as you can see from our timeline, we are just about finished with this work. We're very thankful to all of you for your review throughout this process and your assistance. And that is what brings us to tonight's request to recommend adoption of the final report. This will then be presented to City Council for final approval. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available and happy to answer any questions you might have about the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm, for one, very, very excited to come to this point in the project. I wouldn't be surprised if you all feel the same way as well. It's a lot of work. This is an opportunity now for commissioners to ask any questions. So again, we'll go by name. Commissioner DeVrent, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. First of all, really impressive report here. I actually flipped through every single page of the homes to kind of get an idea of where everything was, and then drove to a couple of the districts that I didn't know existed or where they were, to get an idea of them. So very, like I said, very impressive, very informative throughout the whole documentation. And of course, as you go through some of these, I was surprised that some homes that in the neighborhood that I walk by every day were non-contributors, and some of those were contributors. And I guess that was my question. In a historical district like this, when you have non-contributors within that and something gets designated as a historical district, do non-contributors, do they still have to adhere to the preservation rules and things like that are in a historical district?
Yes, so if the district is designated, the non-contributors will still go through a review. It's a much less rigorous review than contributing properties, and it relates much more to overall compatibility with the district. So there is review, which is less stringent.
Okay. And if a house is a non-contributor at the time, right, as it is like now designated that, and somebody wants to go in and they're, okay, I'm in a historical district, so I want to make these small changes. If there are changes, can they be reevaluated and then be added back into as a contributor to that district if they wanted to?
I think if an owner was able to restore a property to its historic character, if it was evident what the original character was, and they were able to make true restoration work, I think they could apply to go through a process of reevaluation to be added as a contributor.
Okay. And then when you're evaluating, I got some of the qualifications for non-contributors and contributors I get, but is there like an overall percentage of a home? like there's one down the street from me that it seemed like the only thing that they changed was some detail around the windows. The rest of the house, to me, seems like, okay, it's just as historical, and it knocked them out of being a contributor. So is there like a percentage of what you're looking at to make these determinations?
There's not a percentage, but we look very carefully at how reversible alterations are. So windows are really a sticking point because, like I said, if a window has been replaced in its original openings and the frame is there and say there's a surround, like a decorative surround, and someone added a replacement window within that opening, that would not constitute a building being a non-contributor. But if, and it sounds like this might be the case with the property you're mentioning, if the fenestration patterns have been changed, so if, let's say, they changed the opening to fit like an off-the-shelf window that might be a different size than the original window, that really starts to change the overall character of the building. You know, Craftsman houses have wide windows and Tudor houses have tall, sort of narrow, tall windows. And once you start to change those window openings, that really does change the character of the building. So that's one of those types of alterations that's much harder to reverse and might kick something. That might be the only change, but it might kick something into being a non-contributor because it's less reversible than just changing a window within the original opening.
Okay. And speaking of windows, let's just say like my home, which is not part of these districts or whatever, has the double hung original windows and everything like that. And so let's say I want to replace those and keep the openings the same and everything, but I want to put more energy efficient windows in. But let's just, for sake of argument, I am in a historical district. My house is a contributor. So if somebody wants to do that, to take advantage of, if there are tax benefits of doing that, do they have to go through a review process for replacing those windows and everything else that are in there? And even if they're not changing the, like the size of the windows or anything like that, and how long extra does that take for them, those processes to go through?
Yeah, so windows replacement would trigger review, and sometime. I think one of the benefits of being in a historic district is being able to get resources for, advice as to how you might retrofit your existing windows, and the city might have resources for homeowners and ways that they can do a retrofit to keep the existing windows to make them more energy efficient. If an owner is still just really, really wanting to put in dual pane windows and they don't feel that they can retrofit their existing windows in a way that they would like and still meet their energy efficiency goals, there are replacement windows that are better than others in terms of retaining historic character, and I think that's something else that city staff could help owners identify suitable replacement windows that are not just, there are some that are much better than others, I would say, in terms of retaining historic character. In terms of how long what that would add to the process, I can't say exactly how much longer that would take to get through the city's process. But it doesn't mean that someone just can't replace their windows because they're located within a historic district. It just takes some review.
And then the next step, when it gets into the point of designating these, the next step will go to the city council for approval of that. Then I'm assuming that paperwork is distributed to everybody who falls within those districts, to the homeowners, and I believe you have to have 51% of the homeowners have to agree to this being designated as a historical district. Is that correct? Okay, and so there'll be meetings, things like that will be set up, and people can go and have all the questions that they want in discussing this, so they understand exactly what's going to be happening. Okay.
Right, so a whole separate process from this for designation, and there would be also, I think, design guidelines to help really guide change within the district when it's designated.
Okay, great. Those are all my questions.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Commissioner DeVrent. Commissioner Weeks?
Okay, there we go. We're live. I just want to say that seeing the development of this whole project has been really exciting, and to see where we're at now with a final product, so to speak, it's just, it's wonderful. I don't know another word to describe just, how we respect our city and how vintage our city is and what we have to offer. Most of the questions that you discussed already were things that I was thinking about. As far as changes, for example, a contributor that wants to make some changes and they apply for a building permit, what triggers the reviews? Does a building permit application?
Yes.
Okay.
And that
that'll
triggers
go-
an initial review for more review at this point. Yeah.
Okay, okay, so that's like the design reviews. Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weeks. Commissioner Urena?
I really don't have any questions. Again, I applaud all the work and dedication that it took to get this where we are now. I want to see where this is going to end up with the community. Hopefully, they can embrace it as much as we've been the last handful of years. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Urena. Vice Chair Mahara?
Again, I have the same sentiment. This is a very thorough report, and just like the other commissioners, I literally went through every single page and just found it fascinating. Looking at the photos, the homes that I walked by, the year they were built, and also what does and doesn't classify them as potential contributors. Having said that, there's in your report, there's nothing, none of the 7 districts would qualify for National Register or the California Register. I understand the National Register. What would it take to qualify for the California Register? Is it a percentage of homes that are deemed, potential contributors? Is that what it is? It's obviously higher probably than the 51%.
Exactly. Yeah, typically a higher integrity threshold. And for the most part, national and California are somewhat similar in their sort of strength of association and integrity thresholds, and much more stringent than local.
Got it. Okay. I think a lot of the questions were answered. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mahara. Like the others, I have commendations galore. It really has been a delight to go through, and I think a real education piece. I suppose my questions really have much more to do with our role once this goes through the City Council in terms of some of the work that we need to do in anticipation of having this as a living document within the city. And I would be very curious to see if it would be possible to work with other commissions as we start developing guidelines. I think in line with what Commissioner DeVrent was saying, guidelines for people coming to the City Council desk are going to be very important to have just in terms of communicating out. Before we had any of these tools, I felt that I was going to the Planning Commission constantly saying character, massing, scale, over and over and over, sort of my 3 words. But I also think that in terms of our own commission, there's actually quite a bit of education that would benefit our work. I think it would be very helpful to have maybe a review of the Mills Act and Mills Act process. I know that as I've been looking through, I'm thinking constantly of neighbors and people whose homes I've seen that I would love to make them aware of the program. So making sure that we're all refreshed on that, I think would be very helpful. And then even just in terms of understanding the differences between contributor and non-contributor, I think a good review of the Secretary of Interior standards and just helping us understand what it means to compromise the integrity or to preserve the integrity, getting a sense of what could be done in terms of alterations, additions, and infill. So I think that would be something very beneficial. But I know in the past we've been able to do joint meetings with other commissions, and I think this is a really wonderful opportunity to work with our Design Review Commission and talking about some of the guidelines that could help maintain the character of both our planning zones and the historic districts. And then I, of course, would love to put this into action, either through individual designations or designations of districts. I would like to see that all come together. I was going to ask Ms. Miliot if she has any questions or comments, but also we had talked a little bit before just about making sure that in terms of our ordinance and the updates that were being done there, that we've made sure everything is communicating and in sync.
Right. Thank you so much, Chair Lubicic, for the opportunity to talk on that. And thank you, Katie, for the great presentation, and ARG, the whole team, really, for the great work you've done over a number of years. One thing I just wanted to comment on, as Katie mentioned, it's a bit of a bad timing, and it's because we were working with ordinance revisions at the same time that the survey was happening. And so we've kind of tossed these terms back and forth, conservation overlay zones and planning districts. So the way it was mentioned in the presentation, and there's also a mention of it in here, and, in several places. So I just wanted to point out, I think that it's well done, because I think what we did at last, although it's hard to remember at what stage we were at, was asked to try to retain both, because we do have conservation overlay zones currently in the ordinance, but we think we're moving towards planning districts, which was what we had, the commission had reviewed and commented on last time we looked at the ordinance. So, and I do see that in here. We do use historic districts and planning districts, and then under planning districts, the document does say alternatively known as conservation overlay zones. And then on the slide that you had with the districts or the planning districts, you have that conservation overlay zone, and then referring with the name as planning district. So I think that really fits the bill. So it will help us maintain a flexible position going forward. So thank you for that. I did have one other comment on 7R properties. I think one time when we spoke with, that ARG was presenting, we were hopeful we wouldn't, at the end of this, have any. And I did notice, you mentioned it in the presentation, but I did notice in the survey report, page 10, you don't list it in the chart of status codes. And I did look at the table, and I didn't see any 7R. So I do think we may have weeded those out and maybe just dug down a little further and gotten the information that was needed to actually make a finding on those. So if that's the case, that's wonderful. It does seem to be the case when I look through the survey report.
That is likely to be the case. That just might be a holdover from the
Right.
previous, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you. Well, if so, that's great news, and it does look like that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now there's an opportunity for public comment. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
Looks like there's someone in the audience who would like to address. Please come up.
Please do come up to the microphone.
And if you could state your name and your question, please.
Yeah, my name is Ed Fox. I think you covered this. I just want to double check. So in order for this to move forward, you need 51% of that given community, given zone to approve this, correct? And that is whether they are contributing or not contributing homes? That would be a question for...
Hi, thanks so much. So in order for the survey to move forward, the commission will be deciding on the action that they'll take today and whether that will be to recommend approval of the survey or not. And then that will go forward to City Council. And then at a later time, when there'll be notification out to the property owners about the status of their property, and then there'll be an effort at some point to see if those potential historic districts want to become designated, and that is where it does take 51%. So there'll be more opportunities for you to participate in those conversations.
Or spread the word, okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to notify them of, via snail mail, or, because a lot
Well-
of people, we get this junk and it's just trash, throw it away.
Yeah, a program for notification hasn't been developed yet because we just haven't gotten to that stage, but that'll be the next conversation at the staff level. So if you have comments about how that would best take place, I'm sure the city staff would welcome those.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments? If not, it is 7:04, and I will close the public comment. Are there any further comments from commissioners? Commissioner DeVrent?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up. I think Mr. Fox, he asked if it was in the district, if homes that were non-contributors get to vote on that. And I think that some clarification on that would be great.
Thank you so much. Yes, great question. Yes, you do get to vote. The whole district would decide at the time that, we come to the community and you learn more about what being in a district means and a contributor or non-contributor means. Yes, you would have the opportunity to vote on that. And 51%, have to vote in favor of moving forward to become a district. And then, of course, there is more process to that. That's just if the community, the district, is in favor of moving forward with that as a designation.
Thank you. Commissioner Weeks, any further comments or questions?
No further comments.
Okay. Commissioner Orena?
Not at this time.
Right, and Vice Chair Mahara?
I have one. A while back, we talked about the Mills Act, and it was a discussion about the fee for that. Well, I don't know that we know what that fee is now. Was it changed? We had recommended that it not be too excessive so that more people would be interested in something like this. Do you know what that fee would be?
Staff currently does not have that exact number, but at the time when it was presented first to the Preservation Commission and then to the City Council, it was initially based on full cost recovery for taking an application from initial application to all the levels of reviews that are involved leading to City Council. The comments provided by the Commission were shared with the Council, and I think there were some adjustments made to that number. But again, I don't have that number before me this evening, but there were minor adjustments taking in the comments from the Commission.
Thank you.
Right. Well, with no further questions or comments, I would like to call for a vote on resolution number 25-01. This is a resolution of the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission of the City of San Gabriel, California, recommending City Council approval of a draft Historic Resource Survey Report Phase 2. If I could get a motion?
I motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Could we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner DeVrint,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks,
Aye.
Commissioner Urena,
Aye.
Vice Chair Maharo,
Aye.
Chair Lubisic.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you very, very much for a wonderful, wonderful report and presentation tonight. Very excited about this. That takes us to item number 4, which is staff items.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, member of the Commission. There are just 2 updates for the Commission this evening. An update on the status of where the Playhouse programming project is at. On July 9th, the city's consultant, arts consulting group, and they are currently being overseen by the Community Services Department under Rebecca Perez, director. They held their first strategic planning meeting workshop. It was a virtual meeting, and during that meeting, the consulting firm introduced the process of the discussion that is to take place amongst the committee. Also discussions on timeline and then outlining the role of the committee. So if there was a member that wasn't able to attend, some of the notations were provided to the commission this evening just to kind of catch up on what was discussed. It was the introductory meeting. And following, Director Perez did discuss with me that next steps would be to start having workshops with the Community Service Commission as well as the Preservation Commission. So we are looking at some potential dates to have the consulting firm come before the commission and to have some focus workshops and discussions on those programming. And really quick, some of the items that were discussed, again, just kind of to start the conversation, priorities, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities for future programming at the Playhouse, as well as having more meaningful art engagements with production companies, with performers. Recently, the City Council approved, I think, a partnership with the symphony. So that is an example of a new partnership with an organization that has experience putting together performances to occur at the Playhouse. And then also when it comes to drawing in more visitors to start looking at promoting San Gabriel beyond the San Gabriel border and to really start reaching out throughout the San Gabriel Valley region. And also, lastly, as part of that workshop, it was to have discussions about potential survey questions to reach out to the community as well and to identify any groups or individuals or stakeholders that the consulting firm should be reaching out to. So if any individuals or groups come to mind, stakeholders, again, not necessarily limited to the boundaries of San Gabriel, but any resources that the city may not be aware of, because again, production it's not what city staff typically does. So it's the start of that conversation, and if there are any thoughts to that, definitely send those thoughts and comments to, again, Director Perez in Community Services. And that is currently where the project is at. Hopefully, as it moves along, staff will be able to continue to provide the updates not only to the commission, but also to the public and any opportunities that we have where the public can come and comment and provide their thoughts. The timeline and the scheduling has also been provided to the commission this evening. So absolutely share that with the public. Anybody who has interests and thoughts and ideas for programming at the Playhouse, that's where that project is at. And then second, Chair may also be encouraging participation in this event, but recently we did have a meeting with the Historical Association just to kind of talk about annual maintenance of the museum and the jail, and so they took the opportunity to also share with city staff about their fundraising event. And this is going to take place on September 4th at 6 p.m. And the theme of the fundraising event is to honor Camila Lopez. She is the San Gabriel Historical Museum curator. There is a fee to the fundraiser, but that's kind of the point of it. And we would give out the contact information of the association, but given that City Hall is a little bit more active and we're a little bit more reachable, we are encouraging anybody who would like more information, just contact City Hall, and we'd be more than happy to provide that information and also direct contact to the association as well. But it's a very charming and just thoughtful event, and so hopefully they get a lot of participation for this event. And this concludes staff's comments.
Thank you very much. I was going to raise the fundraiser as part of my report. Are there any questions about the staff report? All right, that brings us to the fifth item, commissioner comments and conference meeting reports. Each commissioner may address the commission on matters of general information and/or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and/or meetings that they have attended. So Commissioner DeVrent, I'll start with you.
I have nothing, no contributions at this time.
All right, Commissioner Weeks?
Nothing to share right now.
Commissioner Urena?
I have nothing at this time.
Vice Chair Maharo?
Just one. I'm sorry, I know you may have mentioned it. Where's the location of this event for the
I did not. I missed that. So the event is taking place at the Grapevine Arbor.
Is there, do we have to RSVP for that?
Yes, let's see. Is there an RSVP? There is not a date for RSVPing. Again, if there is anybody who is aware of Mary Camarino, she is the contact for this event. Otherwise, if not, the Historical Association, or as staff mentioned, contacting City Hall, and we'd be very happy to provide more details.
Thank you.
I have three things that I wanted to bring up tonight. One was the fundraiser for the Historical Association, and just to uplift Camila Lopez, who, while she serves as the curator of the museum, is the living history of San Gabriel and her family story. It'll be a wonderful night honoring her. She is as much San Gabriel as anyone I can think of. And it's really, really wonderful that they are choosing to honor her this year. And it's usually a really beautiful event. There will be plenty of food and usually an auction. It's a really nice way to support our local history. The other thing sort of in that vein that I wanted to bring up is that tomorrow the California Preservation Foundation has sort of a lunchtime webinar where they are presenting California history through landmarks. So it's just a wonderful way to learn more about the state of California, but I also think that it could be a nice template in some ways of what we can do here in San Gabriel as we want to promote our own history and landmarks. It might be a way through our public information officer, our social media accounts, to sort of borrow the idea and tell the story of California through San Gabriel, which we can truly do. It's an incredibly rich history, and I would love to see it promoted more. And then the third item that I wanted to bring up is a bit of a planning request. Since we last met, La Laguna Playground celebrated its 60th anniversary, and we have completed all renovations on the pieces, we being the Friends of La Laguna. I would really love to work on bringing that project up for the awards rounds, whether it's LA Conservancy, California Preservation Foundation, and I, because it is on the National Register, would say we should aim for the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The team that has worked for the last 20 years to restore the playground, there are people like David Charlebois in California Restoration Waterproofing, whose hands have brought it back to life, I believe, for a solid another 60 years of play for generations. And I think it would be wonderful to honor their work, but also, again, to bring some attention to a treasure that we have in San Gabriel. So we've got some time, but I would love to work on bringing that forward. And for that matter, even our survey report as a planning document, I think we should really celebrate what we've been able to accomplish in San Gabriel. So those are my reports. And with that, if there's no further business, we will adjourn the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission meeting at 7:16 to the regular meeting of the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission on September 10th at 6:30 here at City Hall. Thank you, everyone.